You did the Goodfellas pizza deal. You've already got, obviously, Bird's Eye, Finder, so fish fingers, pizza, and now you've added to that the Yorkshire puddings. Where does the company go? What's the end game here? Is this just about building out the whole frozen foods aisle?
Oh, it's very much in line with our strategy. You remember, it's frozen food, and we like frozen food. It's a great brand, and it's a great combination with other great brands, like Bird's Eye, like Goodfellas in pizza, as you said. And it makes all the sense together. So that's that. And in the meantime, we're doing well, as you know. Quarter one was strong to very strong. And we also restructuring, investing behind the Goodfellas. We're very pleased with the acquisition so far, so good, doing well. And to your point, we love definitely frozen food. It's a great category, and more, the good news is more and more people seem to like this category in the US and in Europe.
But you've rolled up like a bunch of these assets into a fairly successful company. Obviously, the market likes Nomad at the moment. We can see even the shares up a bit again this morning. Is this ultimately a company that sells itself? Do we see these pure play roll-ups often end up as M&A targets themselves?
At this stage, we are a pure player. We like what we're doing. We have what it takes to consolidate the industry, which is great. And time will tell. I think we are here to create value. You may remember the first thing we did for the first 2 years was really to recreate the foundations of this industry. So it's not like just a combination of assets. We're doing much more than that, and we're really doing, we're bringing capabilities from one category to another, from one subcategory to another. That's what we're doing, and I think it's difficult to beat.
Mr. Descheemaeker, your three big markets are the UK, number one,
yes.
You're in Germany, you're in Italy.
Yeah.
How much does turmoil, geopolitical turmoil, like we're seeing in Italy, Brexit that we see in the UK, affect the consumer in these particular countries?
At the end of the day, they all love our brands. So even if it's, the political situation is a bit more difficult, they still need to eat. And for example, Aunt Bessie is the brand for the Sunday meal. And what will it change? Nothing.
We've got to describe. And Yorkshire pudding, by the way, to all the Americans listening, if you don't exactly know, is like it's a battered good that we have with our roasts. It's famed here for us. But it's not wildly healthy. And interestingly, Stefan, you've always talked about how frozen food as a category is a healthy one. You're trying to articulate that a bit more. But how does pizza and how does potatoes really fit in with that?
Number one, frozen food is starting with things like waste, for example. In terms of waste, it's much better than what we can imagine in terms of, for example, chilled or fresh. That's one thing. Second, in terms of conservative agents and all these things, much better. Again, and that's also our job in terms of how can we improve the product. And at the end of the day, people need obviously very healthy food. It's still very healthy, but they also need something which is a bit more of comfort. And that's what we're offering.
Stefan, we've seen you guys do a run of deals in Europe. A lot of these assets very focused in Europe. Are we going to see anything from Nomad in the US? Is this a company that's going to come here for M&A as well?
Oh, it can happen. We still have a lot to do in Europe. We're the only frozen food player, as opposed to what can happen right now in the US, where you have a lot of people that can play the consolidation game. So we're the only ones. But at this stage, we never say never. It can happen, and definitely we believe that the US is a great market, not only in frozen food but also in other branded food overall. So a lot to do. In the meantime, we keep our track with frozen food in Europe.
Now, another deal that's happened in the UK recently that obviously affects food producers and food companies like Nomad is this merger between Asda and Sainsbury's. How do you play that? Has that made the negotiations with the supermarkets tougher?
Well, the only thing I can say is great brands is the best way to obviously to negotiate, to deal with these people, and that's a fact, and that's consolidation is taking place in our industry. It's also taking place in retail. That's part of the game, and I've been a retail in my life, so I know what consolidation is, and I know that these guys, what they need is to have great products, great brands. As long as they have this, and we think we can offer these brands, it's going to be a normal negotiation. I'm not saying it's an easy negotiation. It's never an easy negotiation anyway, but that's part of the business.
OK, so last question for you, Stefan. You've spent most of your career in the food industry. We're seeing a lot of headwinds for some of the bigger companies, Kellogg's, Campbell's, General Mills, all suffering. What is the future of the food industry? Does big food cease to exist and everything becomes much more specialized?
You know, it's very difficult for me to say what the others should do. The only thing I know is by being simple and really focused and with a reasonable size, it works pretty well, and our people like it. It's very interesting when you interviewing people for new jobs within the organization. What they say is we have an interesting size, so a lot to do. I can have a lot of impact. It's more simple and it's faster. So it's a good combination. I would put it that way. Then I leave it to the others to explain what they want to do.